Welcome to Criminal Imagination. This series is not a tale of logic and reason. It is a descent into shadows, secrets, and the crimes that refuse to die. We will uncover the forgotten roots of crime fiction, haunted mansions, unreliable confessions, spectral witnesses, and guilty minds fractured by mirrors and blood. And through this, we will explore how fear, guilt, madness, and supernatural shape the genre we believed we understood. This is the archive of the repressed. Welcome to Gothic Evidence, Dark Inheritance, a world where justice limps behind secrets, where madness wears a velvet coat, and the blood on the floor tells stories older than law or even time. We are not here to explain a crime. We are here to exhume it, to work with the forgotten, to witness the evidence that never made it to trial, the bloody handprint in the mirror, the trembling confession scratched in ink and delusion. And tonight we enter the courtroom, not for justice, but for madness. This is Insanity as an Alibi, the madness defense. Insanity, not as diagnosis, but as dagger, as wheel, as excuse. Not a plea for mercy, but for exemption. A threshold between guilt and void. And yet, what if the real terror lies not in the lie, but in the truth? What if he really was mad? What if Nikolai Gogol's Madman wrote in his diary, Spain has no king. They have found me. I am the king of Spain. In Gothic crime fiction, the figure of the madman is not always a monster. Sometimes he is a clerk, a detective, a lonely man in a corner room. Sometimes he is us. Let us begin in the 19th century Russia, the bureaucratic labyrinth of Imperial Petersburg, the setting of Gogol's diary of a madman. Poprishin is a minor civil servant, a titular counselor who begins to write a diary. His tone is mundane at first, petty complaints about shoes, about superior officers, about women he cannot touch. But as the days progresses, the voice fractures. He claims to overhear dogs talking. He believes letters are being exchanged between them. He suspects a conspiracy and eventually he concludes he is the long-lost king of Spain. What is remarkable is not the descent itself, but the world's complicity in it. There is no revelation, no scream, no crime, only whispers. He writes, March 43rd. Today the earth stood on its head, people walked on sky, a carriage drove past without horses, the moon wept. He is eventually institutionalized, but we, the readers, are never fully certain where the madness began. Was it in him, or was the society that made him mad? This is where Gothic crime diverges from the procedural. There is no clear criminal, no clear victim, only a mind unraveling under pressure. Insanity in Gothic fiction is not clinical, it is atmospheric, a fog that creeps in through the cracks of rationality, a voice that mutters behind the wall. In Gothic courtrooms, the alibi of madness is not just a legal strategy, it is a narrative crisis. What happens when truth is unknowable? When motive is buried in trauma? When confession comes not in testimony but in visions? Let us leap forward in time, from Tsarist bureaucracy to post-war Switzerland. Friedrich Dürrenmatt's The Pledge is not a traditional crime novel. It is a negation, a subversion, a destruction of every trope in the detective genre. The premise is familiar. A little girl is found murdered. A detective, Mathai, pledges to her mother that he will find the killer. So far, so rational. So far, so clean. But Dürrenmatt doesn't give us closure. Instead, he gives us obsession. Mathai constructs a meticulous psychological profile of the killer. He waits, stalks, and prepares bait. But years pass, the killer never appears. Mathai is ruined. And then, only after the detective has lost his mind, it is revealed the killer had died in a car crash years ago. The detective was right, but the world was already wrong. Dürrenmatt writes, he lost his sanity not because he was wrong, but because no one would believe he was right. And so we return to our theme, madness not as absence of truth, but as its excess. In The Pledge, madness is not an alibi. It is a consequence of obsession, of a mind adhering too tightly to logic in a world governed by accident and chaos. What happens to the detective when the world refuses to be solved? What happens to the reader when the solution is meaningless? This is the Gothic inversion. Insanity becomes not the cause of crime, but its echo. But what is an alibi, really? In Latin, alibi means elsewhere, to be somewhere else, to not be there when the crime happened. Insanity as an alibi suggests, I was not there, my mind was. The body acted, but the self, the rational moral self, was absent. In court, this defense is deeply controversial because it fractures our legal and philosophical assumptions. We believe in agency, we believe in responsibility, we believe that to commit a crime one must intend it. But what if there is no intent, only delusion or split selves or trauma rising like smoke? The Gothic delights in such fractures. It gives us murderers who are unaware of their crimes, detectives whose minds unravel under the weight of their own deductions, witnesses who speak in tongues, victims who reappear in dreams. Let us recall the case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, a man who divides himself in two, one rational, one criminal. But which one is guilty? Is it the hand that killed, or the mind that created the hand? This limbo, the space between guilt and madness, is the haunted courtroom of Gothic crime. In procedural fiction, guilt is clarified. In Gothic fiction, it is mirrored. What does that mean? It means that the criminal is not only guilty, but afraid of what he has done, or what he might do again, or what has always lived within him. Gogol's apparition is harmless, but he is tragic. Dürrenmatt's Mathai is brilliant, but he is broken. Both live in the shadow of institutions that cannot hold them. The asylum, the court, the church, the state. These walls are not strong enough, not for the storm of the mind. And let us not ignore the role of the society. Insanity as an alibi does not arise in a vacuum. It blooms in moments of panic. When a nation fears the loss of control, when cities become unfamiliar and laws seem fragile, we look for scapegoat. And what better scapegoat than the insane? They are unknowable, uncontainable, unfixable. But Gothic crime fiction reminds us madness is not outside the world, it is its consequence. In Diary of a Madman, Fabrician is not born mad, he is made mad. By humiliation, by exclusion, by the relentless grind of a machine that recognizes neither dignity nor despair. In The Pledge, Mathai is destroyed not by a killer, but by the failure of justice to keep its promise. Insanity is not the cause of crime, it is the witness. It records what society cannot admit, that evil is not always monstrous, that guilt is not always clear, that truth is not always whole. And then there is one more thread to consider: trauma. In the modern world, we understand trauma as wound, psychic rupture. But in Gothic fiction, trauma is haunting. It returns, it repeats. It is not remembered, it is relived. So we encounter characters who have no memory of their crimes, or who commit them in dreams, or who speak in riddles because the truth is too unbearable. The courtroom becomes a seance, the testimony a confession of ghosts. And so I ask you, can we ever truly separate madness from motive? When we read the diary of a madman, do we find a fiction or a warning? When we watch a detective destroy himself for a truth no one else can see, do we admire him or fear we are him? What if madness is not an alibi? What if it is the mirror? And what if we are the split? Think about it. Until next time, keep the candles lit and the doors locked. Remember, the mind is not always a sanctuary, and guilt, once summoned, does not go quietly. This has been the Criminal Imagination.